It's Chris. Today we are going to revisit a previous video, one of my more popular videos for who knows why here on YouTube, but you know, the ones you think people will watch, they never watch, and then the ones you think are just like crap and you'll publish them anyway are the ones that become most popular. So one of those videos was how to air seal this French door with foam backer rod, and in that video we looked at a few things. Today I've got a blower door and I actually want to quantify how much of a difference does it make in cubic feet per minute from an air leakage standpoint. So got a blower door, we're gonna measure with the backer rod, without, and actually figure out, did this really make a difference, and if so, how much? So in that video, we alluded to the day that this door would be replaced, and that really stuffing it with foam backer rod is really only a temporary or seasonal situation. So the day is fast approaching where this door has met its replacement, and lo and behold, just outside here on the deck, we have its replacement sitting here. So we're going to replace it. So we'll shoot this video, figure out with the blower door, did the foam backer rod actually make a difference? If so, how much? We'll also be doing a video at some point on how to replace this door. And then secondly, we'll do a blower door comparison with this door. And then next with the new door that's going in here, the sliding glass door, to see if it is better, if a new door is better from an air leakage standpoint. Let's go set up the blower door on an exterior door that's not this one, right? Because we're gonna be obviously using this one, measuring this one, and we'll go get that set up, get that running, and then we'll come and take a measurement.
All right, so we got the red door of truth set up, blower door. We've got it set to pressurize at 50 pascals. We might have to voice over all of this because this obviously is really loud with this fan in here. What we want to look at. We're just waiting for this to hit exactly 50 pascals. There we go. 4,700 CFM is going to be our air leakage rate.
All right, let's take out all this foam backer rod.
Here I've overlaid a thermal image of the door after I took the foam out. It's only about 56 degrees outside, so there's not a lot of temperature difference for us to see, but you can see those lighter blue spots where the door is a little bit cooler and where we have a lot of the air getting in. Right there, we're holding steady at 50 pascals, and 4,765 cubic feet is going to be our air leakage. Let's turn this into a meaningful number that actually matters, right? So we have we'll do a little math, figure this out. For our first reading was 4,765 cubic feet per minute of air leakage. Our second reading, after we removed all of the foam backer rod, was 4,700 CFM. So if we subtract these two numbers, we are going to end up with 65 cubic feet of air leakage per minute. You could think of that as roughly equivalent of a small bathroom fan, right? Which is quite a bit of air leakage. So it's like we have this bath fan running all of the time. You know, smaller bath fans are sized at like 50 to 80 cubic feet per minute. And then you got, you know, ones that go up to like 120, 180, 250. So you got bigger ones, but a small bath fan is basically leaking through this French door the entire time. So we have plugged a small bath fan with foam backer rod. There's a couple other ways we could think of this number that is to make it a little bit more meaningful or understandable. One of those is to figure out the to kind of convert this into air changes per hour, per day, or per year of sorts. So let's do that math. To do that, we need to know the volume of our house. Volume is a very simple calculation, right? It's length times width times height. So for me, in my house, these numbers are going to be 39 feet times 39 feet. My house is like basically a perfect square, times 17 feet. Now the reason where I got 17 feet from, right, as the height, is I have a basement floor that's 8 foot tall, and then I have, you know, the actual floor in between the two floors, the first and second floor, is 1 foot. Pretty much I got, you know, 2x12 joists there. And then our second story is 8 feet. So we add those together, we get 17 feet as our height. Now, I don't have any complicated geometry, right? So I don't have any weird rooms. My house is like perfect box. So that makes this calculation easy. But if you got things like vaulted ceilings, you're going to have to do a little trigonometry to find the volume of triangles. You just break it down into multiple shapes, add them all up, get your volume. So when we take those numbers, what we end up with, 25,857 cubic feet of air volume inside the house. We're going to take that and we're going to divide that by our air leakage rate of 65 CFM. And when we do that, we end up with 397.8 minutes, right? Because if you remember back to, units cancel when you divide in public school. So get rid of cubic feet, get rid of cubic feet. That is basically how many minutes it takes for the entire volume of air in our house to completely change itself over. If we were just looking at this one air leak. Now, we know that's not true because we have a ton of other air leaks in our house, but to think of just this one problem that we wouldn't solve, this one air leak, by stuffing foam backer rod, we could think of it that way. Hours is probably a little more useful than minutes, so we're going to divide this by 60 to get, because there's 60 minutes in an hour. So when we do that, we are then left with 6.63 hours, which means in roughly 6 hours and 36 minutes, the entire volume of air in our house changes over because of this one air leak, which is, pretty fast. We could think of this as, it's probably more, useful also to think about this in terms of like a day, 24, because we got 24 hours in a day. We divided that number by our 6.63 hours. We are going to get 3.619. So 3.61, 3.62. That is how many times per day that the volume of air in our home completely would change over because of this one air leak, right? So look at all of that great, wonderful, fresh ventilation. Now, we could think of this in terms of what is the consequence of this over a year as well. So we would multiply this number by 365, because there are 365 days in a year, and we get something like 1,321 times over the course of a year that the air in our house is going to completely change over because of this one leak. So if you're thinking about, we have, by plugging this one door with foam backer rod, we have prevented 1,321 air exchanges per year. That's quite a bit. That adds up over time. Now, to caveat that, we know, so you could think of 50 pascals of pressure is roughly equivalent to about a 25 mile an hour wind. One of the things to consider with that is we don't, in the real world, right, in our house, actually, we don't actually have that much wind acting upon our house at a consistent, steady rate. Our average annual wind speed in this area is something like 11.7 miles per hour or something like that. But if you go a couple hours west into western Minnesota, their average annual wind speeds out there are like 24 miles an hour. So pretty close to that 25 miles an hour. Out in the country, you plant trees around your house to kind of create a windbreak shelter belt. That is actually going to be helpful in terms of air leakage, because then you don't have this consistent pressure acting upon your house. But, so we could take this, 13,021 number, and we could multiply it by half. For our situation is more realistic for that, given our average annual wind speed. So these are just some ways to think about how much of a difference this makes. So that's how we calculate it. We know that stuffing this door with backer rod was, prevented 65 cubic feet of air leakage per minute at 50 pascals. Now, obviously, this is an example of my door and my situation. Your seals and your door might not be as screwed up as mine is or was. And so at some point we will do the comparison video between air leakage rates of, this existing French door as is, and then the new sliding door we put in, because, part of the reason why we're buying this new sliding door is to hopefully decrease that air leakage rate even more than the foam backer rod, and then to not have to stuff foam backer rod in there every season. So a couple things to consider. This isn't, perfect math by any means, but it gets us an idea of what are the consequences of this air leak. And when you get into quantifying cost, it gets a little more difficult, right? Because the question you essentially have to answer is how much do you pay per cubic foot of air in your house? How much does it cost you to condition that air? Or you could figure out, for the whole volume of your house. So, and that's going to vary, depending on how you heat your home and that type of thing. But the simple concept is this: do you pay for your conditioned air? Yeah, right. And the faster that you leak that air out of your home, the quicker, you're just air hemorrhaging or bleeding all of that cost out in air leakage. So that's why we want to prevent air leakage. So there you have it. With that, may your French doors die and go to air sealing hell. Okay, that's a little aggressive. Maybe better yet, may your doors always stay plumb, square, and true, and also, airtight and well air sealed and adorable. Because beautiful doors matter. Yeah. Don't knock it till you try it. A door, that is. That's a pun.